Welcome, everyone. Before we start the meeting, we will have a prayer led by Councilman Deacon, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Amen.
Allegiance to the flag of the States. Republic for nation under
I will now call to order the Tuesday, June 21st, 2022 City Council meeting, which is also available to join virtually or call in with that information on the agenda that can be found on the city's website. Mrs. Donaldson, roll call, please.
Deacon. Fitzwater.
Present.
Hensley. Kimna.
Here.
Lester.
Here.
Schreiber.
Present.
Spencer.
Here.
Spicer.
Present.
Ward. Here. Wiseman.
Item 3, is there a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved.
Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Item 4, we have a special miscellaneous agenda item this evening, and I would like to invite our Mr. Matt Marash, our Public Works Director, to come forward as we do a recognition of Jeff Wonkam, and we also have several of his family members in attendance this evening, so we would like to invite all of them to please come forward if they would want to come up here with Mr. Marash so that we could recognize the family and say a few words about Jeff.
I think most of you know I ever for Jeff, but Jeff is our actually. Again, the city's been very
Sorry. Thank you, Mr. Marash. So these things are always difficult, but I'm so thankful that the family, and stay up here because we want to recognize you all, but I'm thankful that the family of Jeff Wonkam is here today with us and we can celebrate his service to our city. And I know at the visitation, it was quite a celebration of life that they had, and there were so many people there that talked so highly of him and gave him such high recognition. And we are very thankful for his time at the city. And I know Matt went over a lot of this, but I do want to read. Jeff Wonkam started working for the wastewater division in 1988 and saved for 5 years at Taney County Regional Sewer District. He worked his entire professional career for Jefferson City. Jeff was a master of diagnostics, technology, and customer service. Jeff Wonkam embodied the selfless public servant we all strive to be. Always dedicated and selfless public servant. He was the city's Employee of the Year in 2003. In 2021, he was recognized by his peers statewide with receiving the Missouri Water Environment Association dedicated to preserving and enhancing water and the environment Golden Manhole Award, like you mentioned, for outstanding contributions for sewer collection system operations and maintenance. And then he is pictured in our slideshow also receiving the award on the screen. He has gone way too soon, but we in Jefferson City are enriched by his accomplishments and legacy. And we do have some photos here. We did present on the screen there a key to the city for his service, and that is the one of the highest honors that we can give to an employee. And so we were very happy to be able to present that to his wonderful family on behalf of the city and the city council. And there were some other, I have to say, I enjoyed the music and guitar and didn't realize that he was that into music until I saw that in the visitation. And of course, also Hallmark movies was mentioned on there, and his he liked the romantic comedies and all those things that were listed in here too. But more than that, I know that he cared so much about his family, and that's why I appreciate you all taking the time to come here tonight so that we can formally recognize him and his service and his life. And we appreciate all of you, because we know that when somebody works that many years for the city and that hard for the city, it's beyond that person. It's their entire family that is involved in their success. And so all of you definitely played a part in that. So with sincere sympathy and appreciation, and thank you all for coming. And with that, does council have any comments? Mr. Kemna, Councilman Kemna.
I would like to add that Jeff, and along with the gentleman in the back, were pretty good 5th and 6th grade Red Rack football coaches too. So thanks for that. So my condolences.
Very true. Any other comments? Very true. Very true. Well, we appreciate all of you here. Is anything else? Any other comments? And otherwise, thank you for being here. We would ask if the family would like to come forward with Mr. Marash and council, and we could get a photo with the family, if that's okay, and show our recognition and appreciation. So thank you.
Yeah,
Right. Jeff was a great guy. He will be missed. All right. Item 5, ARPA funds discussion. I will turn it over to Councilman Hensley.
Great. Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. I've distributed to the council spreadsheets showing a draft spending proposal for the ARPA funding. Councilman Fitzwater and I have been working together for the past several weeks to create a spending plan to propose
as a framework to guide our discussions concerning the city's available share of ARPA funding, if for no other reason than to be able to begin this final stage of our task without just a blank sheet of paper in front of us. And I appreciate Councilman Fitzwater's partnership in this and his work on this project. We believe that this proposal offers a balanced mix of targeted and strategic long-term investments in public infrastructure improvements, public safety, equipment and facilities, city staff, and community organization initiatives. And I'll just go through the broad strokes. It's a two-phase plan. And in phase one, first of all, the first line is almost $791,000 for stormwater improvements, which were already allocated by the council during the last budget process. So we're leaving those in place. $1,075,000 for essential worker pay. That's based on 430 city employees with no exceptions or differentiated treatment across employees. That would be a one-time payment of $2,500 per employee. Next, $200,000 for the fire radios item, $635,670 for the police department's body cameras and car camera item. And what this part of the plan would do is allocate funds to permit the immediate ordering of this equipment. The amounts would then be reimbursed by public safety tax funds as that fund grows over time. But at the very least, it would allow that ball to get rolling. We also understand that the city's cost for this equipment may be further reduced by funds granted through outside programs, the outcomes of which we don't know at this point. But it gets those balls rolling. Next, $540,000 combined for 5 city facilities projects that were on Mr. Crowell's potential project list from several weeks ago. Those include police station locker room renovation, door access system, police station elevator replacement, retrofitting the fire sprinklers in Fire Station 5 and Fire Station 1. So that's $540,000 for those items. Further replacing the Hyde Park, or substantial improvements, repairs to the Hyde Park burn building. That's a $1.9 million. It's over a $1.9 million item. These have been city facility needs for a long time. And we now have the chance to make them funded priorities. Next, we have $1,325,000 for just a category that we've called infrastructure and capital projects. This includes about $247,000 to fund the 4 projects that were removed from the overlay list, which we discussed during our last council meeting. And then in terms of community organization initiatives, funding the $500,000 request submitted by Lincoln University, and then $100,000 each to the Special Learning Center, the soccer complex, the Habitat for Humanity, and the Boys and Girls Club proposals that were submitted to the council. So these phase one, I should also note, I wish we could have granted all of the funding requests that we received in their entireties. I think if you add the public proposals together with the list of needs that the city administrator provided, I think we're in the $56 or $57 million neighborhood. And, we have about $7.5 million to deal with. So, I understand some folks will probably be disappointed and frustrated at the amount of funding that we're proposing for their cause. But, again, we did our best to balance needs and priorities across the whole community. And I think that these allocations reflect prudent but meaningful levels of support for these important programs. The phase one list would leave about $195,000 as a cushion, which could either be held until phase two, which under our proposal is our suggestion, or allocated further within phase one. So after the public safety tax reimbursements for those couple of items I mentioned, and the receipt of any potential outside funding for certain projects, our phase two proposal, we don't know how much that would be at this point, how much might be left for a second phase. On my list, I have a placeholder essentially of $1.5 to $2 million. That may wind up being way off or on the money. We're not sure yet, but our phase two proposal would allocate funds towards the 911 center concept and additional street improvements. So we propose that the council adopt this two-phase approach tonight for purposes of discussion. And then, of course, subject to final approval following deliberation. I thank you for all of your time, and Councilman Fitzwater has some comments.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And again, thanks to Councilman Hensley for all his work. I think we tried to take a look at the significant projects in the city. Obviously Public Works was a huge piece of that. And, I think we tried to take a look at what I tried to identify as game changer type projects for the city, things that we probably would not be able to do, or most definitely would not be able to do if we didn't have the funds available. I think as Councilman Hensley indicated, I think we were at about $40 million when we added all that city council had and all the outside groups. And we tried to pare that down to some significant projects that can leave a mark on this city for years to come. In addition to trying to live up to the initial concerns of the Arpa funds, which was to take care of staff that went through a very difficult, at least 1 year, and you could probably argue 2 years. And then looking at some of the significant projects that we have within the city, and the one that he asked me to talk about was the infrastructure dollars. As you know, we have spent a long time working on the MSP project, and we've been very fortunate that the mayor has taken that on leadership at the Capitol, and Mr. Melman and the work that they've done with OA in the state of Missouri. And we've had outside interests come in and want to invest in that area, and I think we have pretty close to securing that project. We passed a resolution at I guess 2 meetings ago to accomplish that project. One of the things is we talked to Mr. Holzschneider at JC at the Regional Economic Planning was a short gap in potential funding to pull that project together, and just trying to make sure that we have the resources. And because everybody on council knows, we've got about $4.5 million set aside for infrastructure between what we in the county had identified for that project, the dollars that were moved over after the Clark Avenue roundabout was voted down, and then the federal grant from EDA for another $1.5 million. But it looks like there's about $1 million still in that gap to pull all the pieces together between what we're going to need on site. So what he and I talked about, and he was very generous to say, let's put it in the package and see what council has to say about that, is to put some funding in there to close that project, hopefully. And it seems like in talking to our representatives that looks like a number that could make that significant project. And I remind people, we're looking at a $200 to $300 million project potentially over the next few years on that site, with very little investment from the city. The state gave us the land. We've negotiated for a little bit of additional land, but still we've got very little investment on the site. We've got an outside group, 2 outside groups looking at investing $15 to $20 million. The state is going to put at least one office building, and I think you could argue, based on language, potentially 2 office buildings, the convention center, the hotel, and other investments, and just in these economic times, trying to close that deal. So $1 million of that infrastructure money is kind of earmarked toward that project. And again, I think Councilman Hensley went through the other items on the list. And again, we bounced ideas back and forth. We had a lot of great input from community groups. I know there's a couple others that we would like to figure out some way to get on this list. But we tried to pare down groups that have access to other resources and use the dollars for things that might not have as much access. Other than the 2 projects, I mean, we talked continuously about workforce housing, and we felt like a jump start for Habitat for Humanity kind of sent the message that the city understands that that's a need in our community. And then, as I think a couple meetings ago, Mr. Bexton was here and talked about the Boys and Girls Club expansion on the west side of town. Again, something that impacts working families, and we felt like that was a good message to working families in our community that we understand, we want to be a part of it. And then the third one I would identify is the soccer complex. And again, we tried to pare out for-profit type activities, but the soccer complex is a not-for-profit. It will generate significant sales tax for our community, and we just felt like it was the kind of investment that, again, can be a game changer for our community down the road. So that's kind of how those 3 projects got on the list, in addition to Special Learning Center and some activities that they're trying to do. Again, an organization that helps our working individuals in town, helps a lot of people in our communities. So, I mean, that's kind of the thought process and how we got to it. And I kind of extended my discussion, but the infrastructure was a piece that I was really pushing forward. We've got an exciting project, and we just want to make sure that we've got all the resources available to pull that project together. So I'll turn it back to the councilman.
Well, thank you very much. And I don't have anything further to add other than to reiterate our suggestion and request that the council adopt this tonight for purposes of discussion and amendment, and of course, subject to final approval when the council is ready.
Thank you, Councilman Hensley and Fitzwater. And council discussion? Councilman Spencer?
I'd like to make a motion that I'll second that we move this phase plan into place. I appreciate all of you guys' efforts and bringing us some good hard numbers in that. And I know that's been a lot of work, and sometimes it's been a slow process. We all understand that, but I think it's shown by the quality of the project list that's in front of us tonight. So again, thank you for your efforts, and I'd like to move that forward tonight.
Thank you. We have a motion. Is there a second? Thank you. Motion and second. Any further discussion? And we'll have we'll have Mr. Kroll and Councilwoman Wiseman. I'm sorry, Ward. Gosh, thank you.
I was just going to mention that some of the costs we would are maybe a little bit dated, like the radios, I think maybe a little bit more. But with the cushion amount in there, I think there should be sufficient funds there. But the prices of some of these are just changing so fast that it's hard to estimate when we had that.
Thank you, Councilwoman Ward.
I appreciate the diverse list here. I think we need to look at our infrastructure, look at economic development, and look at those non-for-profit organizations in our community. The soccer complex, yes, I can see the potential of economic development in our community. I don't remember what their ask was. And I know these all address our community and our citizens, but I just have to comment that the homeless are also our citizens in a way, and they are here. They are a part of our community. And I know there was a huge ask from the Salvation Army. I know that they're overflowing. I know there are organizations giving out tents currently. It is becoming a dire situation. So I don't know what we could do to help that organization. Again, I know that their ask was huge for their restoration remodeling project, but I think there needs to be some way we can try to find to be helpful to that population in our community too. So it's just a comment for everybody to kind of mull over.
Councilman Schreiber?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I pretty much concur with this list, and I appreciate the work that's gone into it. One thing that Councilman Ward mentioned was economic development. And I think we all realize as members of this council that without economic development within our community, we cannot help other entities that are in need. We cannot help the homeless. We cannot help the Salvation Army. We cannot help some of the other projects that we hold near and dear. So one thing that I know that has suffered from an economic development standpoint has been the Convention and Visitors Bureau when they lost about $175,000 in 2019 through 2021. And of course, they have a pretty huge economic impact in bringing various people into our city. I know last month, for example, they had 5,300 that came to the MSP tours, which happened to be a record. So I would ask that if at all possible, out of that $194,994, that if possible, we might consider, allocating between 100,000, 175,000 to the Convention and Visitors Bureau to help them offset their substantial loss that they had over a 3-year period, because I think that economic factor has a big impact on our community. So just something for us to consider. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion? So we've had 2 suggestions, and I know there is still some future flexibility since we do have the motion and second to move forward. I don't know if there's any desire to amend or if those are just suggestions for discussion.
And just to confirm, the vote that we're about to take is simply to adopt it as a framework. It's not any final decision or anything like that yet.
Okay, thank you.
So I would think then that if we were to adopt this framework, we could continue tonight to have discussion and entertain proposals or additional ideas.
Okay, any other questions, discussion? Roll call, please.
Deacon,
Aye.
Fitzwater,
Aye.
Hensley,
Aye.
Kimna,
Aye.
Lester,
Aye.
Schreiber,
Aye.
Spencer,
Aye.
Spicer,
Aye.
Ward, Wiseman.
Motion passes. So, and we'll just make sure that it is a framework. I know some of those are very specific projects called out. Some are more general with the infrastructure, but some have the names of the organizations. So we want to make clear as far as reporting and putting information out so those organizations don't budget according, thinking that they may get that when it sounds like there's some other potential projects and organizations that might do that. So, okay.
Now, we could continue with the discussion tonight and see where that leads, or we could marinate on it for a little while. Whatever Mr. Crowell, did you have any comments that you wanted, or did I? Okay, thank you.
So in its current form, it's a draft, and then, I mean, typically it's normal for things to be a kind of that 2-week period where the public then can also give input as well and feedback, which we've had. And if anyone is just joining us, we've had a lot of opportunities for people to come to the podium, even up through our last meeting. So we'll certainly continue that. So just keep it as is for the moment. Is that council's wishes then? Okay. So we've had that pass and it looks like it's in the draft, and I'm sure it likely the next meeting or so, it may come back up for further discussion.
Great. Thank you all very much.
Thank you. Item 6, public hearings. We have item A, Mrs. Donaldson.
Bill 2022-16, an ordinance of the City of Jefferson, Missouri, accepting and approving the final subdivision plat of AZ Jefferson City subdivision, a subdivision of the City of Jefferson, Missouri, and approving a preliminary PUD plan for property addressed as 839 Eastland Drive, Jefferson City, Missouri.
Mr. Sanders?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. First, I'd like to orient you to where this is. This is out off of Eastland Drive and, excuse me, US 50 in the Eastland Shopping Center. Basically, the property is situated between the McDonald's and the gas station and the Gerb's grocery store up there. All the property in the area, actually adjoining this piece of property south of the highway, is already PUD, planned unit development. And then there is some residential to the north on the other side of the highway. This property is subject of two parts of zoning actions. One is a final subdivision plat. On this one lot, what they're doing, if I can get my pointer out here. There we go. So this whole lot is just being split more or less down the middle. It's 2.4 acres. So on the east side, this will be approximately 1 acre, and this will be 1.4 acres. So this is the subdivision plat. This is the easy part of this zoning request. And the other part is a planned unit development for an auto parts retailer. This retailer does not perform other services like some may, so there won't be like a service bay or anything. It's purely sales, retail sales. They have a plan that basically calls for a partial demo of this existing building, which is the old House of Bargains or the Catfish Cabin more recently. But this piece of the building will be demolished as part of their PUD plan. All of the property, let me back up a second. The building, let me focus on the building. It's about 7,400 square feet. And the parking lot has, I believe, 35 parking spaces, which exceeds the parking requirements. They're planning a sidewalk along the private drive, which is on the south, and then also to, let's get here, right there along the private drive and along actually into their store. They're going to have one entrance up here off of this private drive, and then there'll be another one right down here. The parts of the lot that are not going to be paved or building will be a pervious surface. Basically, the rainwater will drain in, so that will be one site improvement. Let me go through my list here. There's no streets involved in this. The private drives are part of the development that's in existence. All the utilities are there. There was a note regarding the need for a fire hydrant, which would be required when a building is constructed. I mentioned the landscaping. They're going to be putting some trees in with irrigation. Adequate lighting. There's 3 poles of lighting and 6 wall packs. The underlying signage will follow the C2 zoning code. I mentioned light traffic. It does not warrant a traffic study. I believe they have 44 cars per hour peak travel time, trips. There was one comment regarding the private drive, which is not on this piece of property. So we talked to the person that made that comment and told him it's really not moot in this conversation for this case here. The applicant has a representative here, Mr. Berlin. This is coming to the City Council with a recommendation to approve by the Planning and Zoning Commission 5-0. I'd be glad to answer any questions, as would the representative.
Thank you. And at this point, are there any questions before we open the public hearing? Okay, seeing none, we will open the public hearing portion, and we will start some discussion for 2216. So we would ask for the applicant to come forward and speak in favor and give us an update on that, and then we will see if there's anyone else in the audience that would like to speak. So welcome.
Need to pull that microphone up. That helps.
Thank you. Does council have any questions or comments? Okay, we appreciate you being here. Is there anyone else here that would like to speak on Bill 2216? Okay, seeing none, we will close the public hearing portion and we will take up the bill. Any council discussion or deliberation? Great, roll call, please.
Fitzwater,
Aye.
Hensley,
Aye.
Kimna,
Aye.
Lester,
Aye.
Schreiber,
Aye.
Spencer,
Aye.
Spicer,
Aye.
Ward,
Aye.
Wiseman, Deacon.
Aye.
Bill passes. Thank you for being here. Appreciate it. Item 7, appointments by the mayor. We'll have Mrs. Strope go over our recommended appointments.
Thank you. So to the Public Transit Advisory Committee, a recommendation to appoint Joshua Hale. To the Transportation and Traffic Commission, Carl Staub, Jack Atterbury, and Julie Allen. And I would like to point out that Carl Staub, this would be a third appointment, would require a 2/3 majority vote of the council. And then to the USS Jefferson City Submarine Committee, Hal Dooley, Bob Pretty, and Michael Rhino.
Okay, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? Roll, or all in favor say aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Item 7B, we have our appointment for our police chief. I'll turn it over to Mr. Kroll.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm pleased to recommend to you the appointment of Captain Eric Willey as Chief of Police. I want to thank Chief Schrader, the current Chief of Police, for his many years of service to the city. Also, would like to thank all the candidates who applied for the position, both internally and externally. They all had a great vision of the department, and we had some good opportunities to get some additional feedback from them. I also want to thank the 2 committees who helped me in facilitating and finalizing my recommendation to you. There is some information in the packet on Captain Willey. I will, on his background and experience, I will read one little portion though. Captain Willey has been with the city of Jefferson since 1998, serving in a variety of positions within the department, currently serving as captain of the Jefferson City Police Department since 2014. Captain Willey oversees the operation division of the police department, which encompasses the patrol section, traffic unit, SWAT team, crisis negotiation team. As a member of the command staff for the police department, Captain Willey periodically assumes the responsibilities of the chief of police in the chief's absence. So I am pleased to recommend the appointment of Captain Eric Willey as chief of police. Glad to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Kroll. Any questions? Councilman Schreiber?
Yes, Madam Mayor. I would like to make a motion that we, the city council, approve the appointment of Captain Eric Willey to the position of chief of police for the city of Jefferson.
Thank
Second.
you, Councilman Schreiber, for the motion and all of the seconds in the room. And appreciate that. And I would echo Mr. Kroll's comments that he made. And the charter reads that this is an appointment that is recommended and approved by both the council and mayor. So I will accept the recommendation that you have made for Captain Willey as chief of police. And with that, we have a motion and several seconds to also accept that appointment. So at this time, we will, is there any other further discussion on the motion? If not, we will have roll call vote. Thank you.
Hensley,
Aye.
Kimna,
Aye.
Lester,
Aye.
Schreiber,
Aye.
Spencer,
Aye.
Spicer,
Aye.
Ward,
Aye.
Wiseman, Deacon,
Aye.
Fitzwater.
Aye.
And that is official now. We have Captain Willey as our new police chief. So congratulations, Captain Willey, or Chief Willey. Let me be the first to call you Chief Willey.
We'll figure out an exact implementation time, and I have to ask him if he's still interested. I guess I should have done that ahead of time.
Captain Willey, would you mind to come up to the podium, and we'd love to, we'll put you on the spot and you can answer that question.
Well, I'm most definitely still interested, but I do want to say how incredibly humbling it is here to be in front of this elected body tonight and know that you're putting your faith and trust in me as your next chief of police, especially during such challenging times as we're seeing now. You know, policing has changed a lot in my 20+ years since I've been here. It requires a lot more patience, a lot more flexibility, a lot more ingenuity, and above all, a lot more compassion. So I feel really good, and I'm humbled by the fact and honored that you saw those traits in me, and you have that amount of trust to know that I'm going to lead the department in the right direction. Jefferson City has been my home for a long, long time. And it dawned on me as I looked around and saw just people that I recognize at the city council meeting tonight that aren't employees or aren't part of this, that are just here that I know. And that's what I love about Jeff City, is its home. And I just want to assure you that any decisions, proposal I bring before you as the chief of police will be with the thoughts of the community at the forefront of my mind, and the betterment of our town and keeping us safe and secure. But thank you very much for putting your faith in me. Be happy to answer any questions if you have them.
Any questions, comments? Councilman Spencer?
Thank you for your willingness to take this on, and you'll only be added to my prayer list, but also your family will be added to my prayer list as well, because they share in this responsibility. They share in this, and we're a small community, and so I really want to thank them for their support as well.
I appreciate that. Yep. Actually, my wife probably has tougher skin than I do, so fine, but I appreciate the thought.
Thank you. Councilman Fitzwater?
Yeah, I just wanted to add my congratulations also. I know that we've had the opportunity over the last couple of years to see some of the behind the scenes and some of the activities that have gone on in our community, and had the opportunity to communicate with Captain Wilde, and I always appreciated the way, you talked about policing being different, and I always appreciated the way that you responded to me as you were dealing with crisis or anticipating dealing with issues. And we were very fortunate in our community. We didn't go through some of the things other communities our size and obviously larger went through. And I know it's because of the police force that we have here, and I know you were working behind the scenes, so thank you.
Thank you. Points.
Any other questions, comments? Fitzwater?
The comment, if there's no other ones, and I can't believe I'm asking, but can we get a picture with our new police?
Well, I was gonna.
Our soon-to-be police?
Yes, actually, absolutely. Before we do, any other questions? Did you have?
Thank you.
Yes.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Yes, if you would come forward, and we have, and then we'd also like to we'll get you, and then we'll also do one with all the police department representatives that are here, and then anyone else here from the public that would like to join in. All right, item 8A, presentation of city's plan to switch to biodiesel. And we have Mr. Matt Amick with the with the Soybean Association to tell us all about it. Our mic is kind of, is it, can you hear them in the back? Is it working? No? Should we do, maybe have him come to one of these? Oh, there it goes.
Hello?
Is it, Jessica, is it working now? Yes. Okay.
All right. Thank
Don't move, just stay right there. You can't.
Did it just go out again? Is it out now? No. Okay. Could we go to one of these other mics? Is that okay? Maybe one. Okay, we're gonna, that way because that way what's recorded, they can hear you. So, okay,
Perfect.
thank you.
Okay, everyone hear me okay? All right. Madam Mayor, members of the City Council, city staff, thank you for having me tonight. I'm here with the Missouri Soybean Association and the Biodiesel Coalition of Missouri. I'm here today to talk about our plan for using biodiesel in the city's fleet. And first, I want to just give a little background on biodiesel if you're not familiar with biodiesel. It's a domestically produced, clean burning drop-in replacement to petroleum diesel. Biodiesel is made here in Missouri using soybean oil. There are 5 plants across the state that are producing somewhere in the range of 250 million gallons of biodiesel. Using biodiesel increases energy security, it improves public health, and provides numerous benefits to the engine, including added lubricity, added cetane, which helps improve the combustion of the fuel, and lower diesel particulate matter, which means less DPM going through the engine. So with world petroleum supply issues, having a domestic source of liquid fuel is critical. And also a recent study showed that biodiesel saves about 4% to the cost of diesel fuel by adding to and extending to the supply of petroleum diesel out there in the marketplace. Additionally, I said that biodiesel helps improve public health. Biodiesel produces 86% less greenhouse gas emissions. And it was actually first introduced here in the state of Missouri using through research done by the University of Missouri, funded by soybean farmers of the state. So we don't have any refineries in Missouri. We grow soybeans and we have biodiesel plants. Many of the farmers in this region deliver soybeans up to the ADM processing facility in Mexico, Missouri, which takes their oil over to the Mid-America Biofuels plant to turn into biodiesel. So it's a great story. The soybeans grown in this very county, this across the river, could be turned into biodiesel that was used by the city's fleet. So that's local, that's sustainable. That means cleaner air for the city and more dollars flowing through the region. So to our plan with our discussions and our work with the city staff, along with myself and Scott Fenwick with the Clean Fuels Alliance America. Clean Fuels used to be the National Biodiesel Board, which is located just up the street on Clark Street. He's the technical director for Clean Fuels. We've been working with staff from the Public Works Department since March, talking about technical discussions, performance discussions with biodiesel. And I will preface this by saying that the Public Works staff has neither advocated nor opposed the use of biodiesel. They've simply allowed us an avenue to have an honest, open discussion about using in their fleet, and I appreciate that. So as I mentioned, we started back in March. Our first initial meeting was gathering all the mechanics from central maintenance as well as the Parks and Recreation Department. We had a technical overview of biodiesel. We answered questions. They gave us feedback. And in general, the feedback was positive. So from there, we moved on to discussions with different representatives from the different departments that oversee the city. Once again, we answered their questions and the feedback was positive. From there, it was determined we would have a path forward for biodiesel in the city's fleet. The plan moving forward. So first off, we would be putting a biodiesel blend at central maintenance only, not Hyde Park. Our plan is to help central maintenance by cleaning the tanks to give everybody a fresh start, make sure everything goes off, a seamless transition. So Missouri Soybean has offered to clean the tanks for the city, which we're working on that in the next couple weeks. Next, we'll slowly introduce a blend of biodiesel. So when I say a blend of biodiesel, we're not talking about 100% biodiesel. We're talking about a blend of biodiesel plus petroleum diesel. So we'll probably start with we will start with a blend called B10. It's a blend of 10% biodiesel and 90% petroleum diesel. From there, the goal is to move up to B20, which is pretty much the max that most equipment manufacturers allow in their equipment. I will mention that the fuel is readily available from 2, possibly 3 local fuel suppliers. And simply, all the city needs to do is ask for that specific blend in their bid for fuel. The fuel is cost competitive, so no added cost to the city. I'll also mention in these discussions, we had Cole County Public Works, who's been using biodiesel for about 3 or 4 years now in certain pieces of equipment they have. They're going to be expanding their usage of biodiesel. And in those discussions we had with city staff, they reported no concerns from using biodiesel thus far. So in closing, Missouri Soybean and Clean Fuel staff, we're here to help. You have us here locally as technical experts, not so much me, but Scott. But we're here to help in any way possible. We expect a seamless transition to biodiesel, similar to other fleets we've worked with, Cole County Public Works, MoDOT, Lambert Airport. And so we expect that seamless transition. We want to commend the city staff for allowing us that opportunity to have an open discussion, keeping an open mind, and allowing us to just present our case to the city. We have excellent leadership at the city, and I'm here. I'm a local. I grew up here. I'm proud that you guys are considering this or using this. It's important to the local farmers, and it's important to our public health. And I thank you for your time. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Well, we do appreciate you coming and giving us that overview, and especially with such a Missouri-made product. I know you touched on your headquarters a bit, but that is something that if any council members or any members of the public have not been out there to see your Center for Soy Innovation, it is quite fascinating to have the tour and realizing just how much soy can be in like almost anything and everything. So are there certain times that people can come out there to see your facility?
Anytime, 8 to 5. Actually, after hours, if you have a special request for a meeting, anytime. We'd love to have you.
Might be nice to have a Public Works Committee meeting. You have some space there that you could accommodate maybe.
That would be
think
great.
about doing it there and see that firsthand.
That'd be great.
Okay, appreciate it. Well, with that, thanks for the update. And I might have you, why don't you come forward? We'll get one last picture for the night.
great.
And then you could share some links with us maybe about biodiesel and soybean that we could link with this photo.
Absolutely.
Number 9, announcements. We have our 4 standing committees we will run through. Is there anything to report on administration, Councilwoman Ward? Is there anything on, are you the vice chair?
I am the vice.
I think we have a date set, though. Is that right, Gail or Mrs. Strope? The next administration would be, are they still having it in July, that first? I have it the 6th of July. Is that correct?
It is scheduled. If it's going to be held, it will be held on Wednesday, July 6th at 7:30 a.m.
That's what I have.
Okay, so stay tuned if that's being the 4th of July week, that could shift, but,
Correct. Yeah, it'll
Okay.
depend on agenda items.
okay, thank you. And finance,
Thank you. Yes, the Finance Committee will meet this coming Thursday at 7:30 a.m. across the hall.
thank you. And public safety,
Yes, Madam Mayor, the next public safety meeting will be on Thursday, June the 30th, 7:30 a.m. at the Police Training Room.
thank you. And public works.
Next meeting is Thursday, July 14th, 7:30 here at City Hall.
Okay, thank you. And for my announcements, I have a few photos that I think they're going to pull up on the screen as well. But I will start with a few other announcements too. I wanted to mention that we did lose a hero in our community, Mr. Bill McInerney, recently passed away at 102. 101, 102. I believe his visitation is tomorrow evening and services Thursday, but he was quite a hero and lived through Pearl Harbor. If you haven't heard his story, I know it's been recorded and told several times, and his story is fascinating. And we give our condolences to his wife, Linda, but certainly appreciate his service to our country. Also wanted to announce Juneteenth was a great celebration at Community Park. There were a lot of people that came together to make that happen, so appreciate that. And then also USS Jefferson City. That's my big announcement that I know they have some photos here that they're loading up on the screen. We had 5 sailors with us from the USS Jefferson City, and they came and visited, and we were so happy to have them here. And their, what did I do with their names? Here we go. Sorry, let me pull them up because I want to recognize. We had a special day for each one of them. So since there were 5, each day was one of their days. And you'll see them pictured here on the screen. So we had the chief of the boat there on the left, and Frank Cook is the chief. So he was, you can see him in most of these pictures there. We also had Chief Darren Inslee there from Georgia. We have James Adley, who is kind of the tall one there with the glasses. Mr. Adley was from Pennsylvania, and his parents actually flew in from Pennsylvania. His parents and sister that are in a few of our pictures, they decided that it was closer to come to Jefferson City than to Guam, because that's where they're stationed right now, so they actually came. And then we had Mr. Don Caleb, the second one there, the second one in that picture as well. And then Mr. Sean Sandifer, and Sean was from about an hour away, so his family also came and participated in a few of our events. So those were the 5 sailors that we had and crew members of the USS Jefferson City. We had a packed week. You can see there, we went to Thursday Night Live, and they were introduced on stage, and the crowds really cheered for them. We also took them to the amphitheater so they could go to the concert, and Parks and Rec took very good care of them. We sure appreciate that. Took them to St. Louis to see the Arch, and they had a Cardinals win. Central Bank treated them to the game. There you see them at the police department, where they were able to get a tour of the SWAT vehicle and an extensive tour of the police department as well. They also saw the fire museum, and they even participated in a funeral procession of a retired firefighter who had passed away. They were able to participate in that. We brought them to City Hall. We went to the top of the Capitol twice because the crew had travel delays, so a few of them arrived a little bit later than planned. So we got to take them all the way to the top. Mr. Bob Pretty gave them a tour of the Capitol itself. They went to the governor's office and met the governor. And then Eris's, Madison's, Central Dairy, went to Central Bank for lunch. Thank you, Councilman Kimna, for arranging that. They also went to the Elks and American Legion. There were several opportunities. They also went to Oscars, where people in the public could come and interact and meet them. Went to Prison Brews. They played bocce. Went to MSP, where Councilman Schreiber gave them a tour of the prison. And they had a tour of the governor's mansion. They spent 3 mornings on the radio, thanks to Hal Dooley, who cornered them not just once, but 3 times to do. So those are just kind of a few of the things. So all the things that they said they did in a week could have been done in a month. I know I'm even missing and forgetting other things that they did. I know a few of you came out to meet them. We appreciate that. It was quite an honor to have them in our namesake city. I know Mr. Kroll was here when they arrived, and we showed them council chambers, and Mr. Kroll is a staff liaison to the USS Jefferson City Submarine Committee, and Councilman Kimna is our council liaison, and Marty Thurston drove them around most of the time, and in a vehicle that was donated by Rusty Drewing, and we appreciate that. So there was a lot of work that went into that. And we have a full committee led by Hal Dooley that meets regularly to plan these visits. They have their banner outside when any exigence calls, and it was fascinating to hear. They did go speak at one of the middle schools to several school children, and hearing them talk about their lives on the submarine and the amount of time that they spend underway, and they are undetectable. So literally no communication with their families or friends at all. Emails, phone calls, nothing. So nobody knows where they are, what they're doing during the time when they are underway. They were stationed in Hawaii. They're in Guam currently, so they had quite a long trip to get here. We are so thankful that they came. It means a lot. Not every city has a namesake, and we're certainly proud that we got to have them here, and they were able to share their experience at things like schools and Thursday Night Live and interact with the public. They even came to Rotary and spoke there. So with that, we appreciate the. Oh, Andy Leonard. Yeah, Andy. He also from Jefferson City Police Department. As you know, Andy was a former Jefferson City USS Jefferson City sailor and ended up, after he was out of the Navy, came to Jefferson City. He was on one of the namesake visits in, I believe, 95 and had such a hospitality here that he decided to met his wife and then came and they located both of them. Neither one had ties to Jefferson City other than the namesake visit that they went on. So no pressure. We were trying to tell those other 5 guys that we would certainly love to. We were recruiting them here, and they loved Jefferson City. And I know we'll continue to stay in touch with them and hope that we'll get them to come back. Councilman Kemna, anything to add? I know you were part of a lot of those.
No, you covered a lot. I know they had a great time. They thanked us for basically everything we did for them, and I know they were well received in the community. I know after Thursday Night Live being introduced, there were celebrities in the crowd, and rightly so. So I was appreciative that they were able to, the military was able to let them come visit. So
It was quite an honor, and you have a whole new level of respect when you hear what they do every day for us. And from age 22 on up, what their skill level is and what they're able to do is just absolutely fascinating and incredible. And really gives you some extra hope in knowing that people like that are out there defending our country. And we're so very proud, especially to have them named for Jefferson City.
yep,
So,
and I believe the chief said that we need to do this every year.
yes, we would love that. We would love to do that again. So appreciate that so much, having them here. It was wonderful. We miss them already. I certainly do. Wish they were still here. And then my last announcement is Honor Flight. So last night, Honor Flight came home. It was the 63rd. So on the screen, we also have with us Mayor Barbara Buffalo from Columbia. So she was just elected in April. And so she also came, they came back from Washington, D.C., and flew back to St. Louis, had a motorcycle escort from Kingdom City to Columbia like they always do. But we had that last night, and certainly, again, want to thank all of our veterans and the people who help Honor Flight to happen so that they can go see their memorials in Washington, D.C. So those are my announcements. Does council have any announcements this evening? Councilman Spencer?
Yes, this Friday, we have our first city organization review scope of services meeting. It'll be Friday, June 24th, 1 o'clock across the hall. And you, at 1 o'clock. And also you referenced it during your remarks. Just would like to share that the JCFD family lost Earl Logan, a 38-year member of the JCFD. He was one of my very first captains I served under. And I know Todd Logan works within the Public Works Department too. So they have our sympathies. So Earl was a great man to work with. So he will be missed.
Thank you, Councilman Spencer. He absolutely will. Any other council announcements? Mr. Sanders has some announcements.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I've got 3. Tomorrow, there will be a public hearing in this room at 5:30 regarding the state CDBG disaster recovery planning documents that are in place so far. This is a document the state put together, and there has been some review back and forth, but this is the opportunity to take a look at what is identified in that planning document for recovery of the 2019 tornado and flooding events that occurred in Cole, Holt, and St. Charles County. The second announcement is for Thursday, the 23rd. That would be across the street. This is an application workshop for the eligible applicants for the Paul Brune grant that would help them repair their unreinforced masonry buildings. If you recall, a couple years ago, we did a structural assessment survey of approximately 100 structures in Old Munich and the core of downtown, and approximately 33 were, well, let me just say about half of them, I think, would be eligible for this grant if awarded. We have contacted the best that we know through mailing and things like this to try to reach out to the property owners. Of course, we don't know which property owners haven't heard, but it is a grant workshop where we'll be talking about the project and what we expect to be in the grant application. Our last meeting this week is Friday. It'll be in this room at 4 p.m. This is our annual meeting we have for our CDBG entitlement funds. That's the annual action plan is what it is. So basically it identifies what projects we're looking forward to working on next year in the budget amounts. This is for our standing roughly $300,000 a year entitlement grant. So that's also going on. Be glad to answer any questions, and most of this is out on our website.
Thank you. Any questions? All right. Item 10, presentations from the gallery. We don't have anyone signed up. Is there anyone I missed here or online? And then on 11, consent agenda, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Bills introduced, 2022-17.
An ordinance of the City of Jefferson, Missouri, amending the City Code, Chapter 32, Section 230.
Mr. Sanders.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. For the past few years, I have had difficulty with the section of the code that pertains to having people maintain their sidewalks and street right-of-way, mainly from hazardous materials that are deposited there one way or another. So in reviewing the code, actually the edits, so to speak, for themselves, that we're basically striking through one little section of the code, and we're putting in.
So the motion would have to carry for somebody else if there's interest, but I've researched information, wanted to provide it to you all, if there's any interest. Convention this year is
Should I
August
continue
7th.
or pause?
You can continue.
Okay. Find my place here. So basically, we're trying to improve upon the process to identify these hazards and how do we address them. So basically, we will be allowed to notify the property owner the best we can, give them 24 hours. If in that 24 hours, they've not been notified, but we did reach out and we did notify, whether they're unable to do it, they don't respond, or they tell us they're going to do it in 24 hours. If there's one of these hazardous incidents, city staff can go and abate that nuisance and go ahead and do the tackling process that we do in those situations. With that, we'd be glad to answer any questions, and Mr. Helmick's here too that deals with this on a day-to-day basis. I could add more to.
Thank you. Are there any questions, comments? Okay, and thank you, Mr. Helmick, for being here as well. Now these next ones Emily's gonna read them all, but 2022-18 through 24.
2022-18, an ordinance of the City of Jefferson, Missouri, amending the City Code, Chapter 8, Section 8-2 and Section 8-3 by replacing the adoption of the National Electrical Code 2014 and amendments to the National Electrical Code 2014 by the adoption of NFPA 70 National Electric Code 2017 edition. 2022-19, an ordinance of the City of Jefferson, Missouri, amending the City Code, Chapter 8, Section 8-4 and Section 8-5 by replacing the adoption of the International Plumbing Code 2015 and amendments to the International Plumbing Code 2015 by adoption of the 2018 International Plumbing Code. 2022-20, an ordinance of the City of Jefferson, Missouri, amending the City Code, Chapter 8, Article 1, Section 8-6, Section 8-7, Section 8-8, and Section 8-9 by replacing the adoption of the 2015 International Mechanical Code and 2015 International Fuel Gas Code by adoption of the 2018 International Mechanical Code and 2018 International Fuel Gas Code. 2022-21, an ordinance of the City of Jefferson, Missouri, amending the City Code, Chapter 8, Article 1, Section 8-10 and Section 8-11 by inserting the adoption of the 2018 International Energy Conservation Code and amendments to the 2018 International Energy Conservation Code. 2022-22, an ordinance of the City of Jefferson, Missouri, amending the City Code, Chapter 8, Article 2, Section 818, 819, 821, 822, 823, 824, 825, and 826 by replacing the adoption of the 2015 International Code, 2015 International Residential Code, 2015 International Existing Building Code, and 2015 International Swimming Pool and Spa Code and their amendments by adoption of the 2018 International Building Code, 2018 International Residential Code, 2018 existing building code, and 2018 international swimming pool and spa code and amendments. 2022-23, an ordinance of the City of Jefferson, Missouri, amending the City Code, Chapter 8, Section 8-49 and 8-50 by replacing the adoption of the 2015 International Property Maintenance Code and amendments to the 2015 International Property Maintenance Code by adoption of the 2018 International Property Maintenance Code. 2022-24, an ordinance of the City of Jefferson, Missouri, amending the City Code, Chapter 13, Article 3, Section 13-42 and 13-43 by replacing the adoption of the 2015 International Fire Code and amendments to the 2015 International Fire Code by adoption of the 2018 International Fire Code.
Mr. Sanders will give us a summary of all that.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Such high expectations. So the city has updated the last building codes in 2015. They come out every 3 years. We take a look at the new ones. It normally takes a while for them to kind of be adopted by the industry. So we do that because we do get an ISO rating on our new construction, which can impact insurance. There is new technology that comes out, new materials, new processes that are studied and researched and are out there that we want to be able to make sure is installed appropriately. And then also things like load tables for framing and other things change. Basically, we want to keep the industry up with the being able to review and inspect what the industry is putting out there in terms of new materials. In 2019, the council approved a resolution to kick this process off. Unfortunately, it has taken 3 years due to whether it's natural disasters or the pandemic. There's several committees that were set up. Basically, there's 16 core industry representatives that have been working with city staff. The 2 standing review boards, the plumbing and electrical board members also serve to review their appropriate codes. There's been roughly 33 meetings. There's basically, I believe, 10 model codes that were reviewed. 9 are being recommended for adoption. The one is the International Wildland Urban Interface Code. That one was not recommended for approval. So there is a new one also. It's a energy code, the IECC, the International Energy Conservation Code. That is new. Parts of that I think were modified not to be adopted. Altogether, there are about 20 amendments, about half and half in terms of striking items out or modifying or changing items and put them back. Some of the big ones is the committee is recommending no retroactive sprinklers in certain types of assembly construction. It was felt that that would be too much of a burden on the existing property owners to have to go back after a certain time, whether it's 6 months or 6 years, and retrofit their building. That was a big one. They're striking some other things that are really kind of interesting. There's code language for an elevator communication system that does not exist. So the board, the committees felt that that wasn't appropriate. So just some other things like that, like they didn't feel it's appropriate to get a permit and inspect a job site trailer that's only going to be there for 3 months, things like that. So with that, I'd be glad to answer any questions. Matt Kryling, who'll be here the next meeting, could probably answer a whole lot more, or if you have any in the interim, we'd be glad to take them via an email or phone or whatever you'd like.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Any questions? All right, 2022-25.
An ordinance of the City of Jefferson, Missouri, authorizing the mayor and city clerk to execute an agreement with Mid-Missouri Earth Movers LLC for the demolition of the dangerous structures located at 109 Adams, 113 Adams, 401 East Capitol, 407 East Capitol, 409 East Capitol, 419 East Capitol, and 410/416 East Capitol.
Mr. Molman.
Thank you. This ordinance would approve a contract with Mid-Missouri Earth Movers for demolition services on 7 properties in the Capitol Avenue neighborhood. The properties that would be covered under this bill include 109 Adams, 113 Adams, 401 East Capitol, 407 East Capitol, 409 East Capitol, 419 East Capitol, and 410/416 East Capitol. The total contract amount is $193,953. So this contract is set up a little different than our typical demolition services contracts. Under the plan that was previously approved by the city council, it is up to the city council to make a decision on which properties are to be demolished. And there's essentially two paths that could be taken. One is a path that the city council could, after presentation of our professional independent structural assessments, to make a determination that the property needs to come down, that is beyond saving, for lack of better terms. The other path that a property could lead to demolition is after the city puts the property out for interested parties and no interested parties come forward, then the plan calls for those properties to be demolished. And so under this contract, the contractor is not entitled to payment, nor is he authorized to perform any demolition until the city council has made such determination or otherwise under the plan. And so essentially what this bill does, it locks in our prices for 6 months. And the purpose of this is to give the city council a degree of certainty on costs. So that way, when they're making the hard decisions on demolitions in this area, they have full information. There will be no question of, well, how much is this going to cost to demolish this particular piece of property? We know that information. It will be available for the city council's disposal when the time comes to make these decisions. So this contract locks in the prices, gets our contractor in order and in line in order to perform the work if we decide to perform that work. However, that decision, whether or not we are going to perform that work, is yet to be made. That is a decision that will be made by the city council in the future. So I'd be happy to answer any other questions.
Any
Sorry,
questions? All right, thank you, Ryan. Miss number 26.
An ordinance of the city of Jefferson, Missouri, authorizing the mayor and city clerk to execute an agreement with Aaron's Contracting Incorporated for the demolition of the dangerous structures located at 413 East Capitol, 517 East Capitol, and 415 Commercial Way.
Mr. Molman.
So thank you. Once again, same story as the last bill. This just happened when we did the bidding process, that we were able to get our best prices by splitting up the work. So the remaining properties that would be subject to the contract under this particular contract with Aaron's include, sorry, 413 East Capitol, 517 East Capitol, and 415 Commercial Way. But the contract set up the exact same way, with the process being the exact same way as the last bill. So I'd be once again happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Thank you. And number 13, bills pending. Oh, I'm sorry, Councilman Fitzwater.
The building at 415 Commercial, is that warehouse type building that sets back up behind? Yeah. Saw Commissioner Bushman this afternoon. I'm sure he's already expressed interest, that the county has some interest in that building, so.
I do know in the past at the staff level, there has been discussion that the county had an interest in some property up there for a parking lot, I believe, or something.
Yeah, they've got some visions, I think, for that annex. I just want to make sure that it's on the record. I knew you guys already were aware of that, but I promised them that I would raise the issue that before the demolishing crews come in, that they have access to it. But I said, we're not moving that fast. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
And what is the timetable on our assessments, structural assessments? Are they moving along?
So we have one actively going that's 2 to 3 weeks out. Did the other one get? Okay. There's another one we're using historic preservation funding on, and so we're still going through that process. But that grant has to be closed out by the end of August, I believe. So I'm getting a nod back there. So by the end of August, we will have all that, hopefully sooner.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions? All right, bills pending 2022-11.
An ordinance of the city of Jefferson, Missouri, authorizing the mayor and city clerk to execute an agreement with Corrective Asphalt Materials in the amount of $93,989.20 for the 2022 street seal coating project.
And if you want to read 12 and 13.
2022-12, an ordinance of the city of Jefferson, Missouri, authorizing the mayor and city clerk to execute an agreement with Donaldson Construction Company LLC in the amount of $202,735.57 for the 2022 microsurfacing project. 2022-13, an ordinance of the city of Jefferson, Missouri, authorizing the mayor and city clerk to execute an agreement with Jefferson Asphalt in the amount of $831,178.50 for the 2022 mill and overlay project.
Mr. Marash?
Thank you. And as we indicated in the pre-meeting, we can talk about all three of these at one time. They're basically our street maintenance package for the year. The first one, as the clerk indicated, is our streets that have been recently overlaid. And this would be just like a seal coat, like you might put on a deck, kind of similar type thought process. The second contract with Donaldson Construction, these are some older asphalt streets that are still in good condition. And so we're trying to find all the fine cracks in those and get those repaired and keep them in that good shape. And then the third contract, Jefferson Asphalt, that is our traditional overlay, that mill and overlay contract. All the streets are under Bill 13 in various sections. You can see which streets we're talking about. And through the bid process, we were approximately $250,000 short in the overall contract. Are getting to all the streets we had anticipated doing. And there's been some discussion about finding those funds to make that contract whole, but these will get the ones listed.
Thank you. Any questions? All right, we have three bills, so let's do roll call on 2022-11.
Kimna,
Aye.
Lester,
Aye.
Schreiber,
Aye.
Spencer,
Aye.
Spicer,
Aye.
Ward,
Aye.
Wiseman, Deacon,
Aye.
Fitzwater,
Aye.
Hensley.
Aye.
Bill passes 2022-12.
Lester,
Aye.
Schreiber,
Aye.
Spencer,
Aye.
Spicer,
Aye.
Ward,
Aye.
Wiseman, Deacon,
Aye.
Fitzwater,
Aye.
Hensley,
Aye.
Kimna.
Aye.
Bill passes. And 2022-13.
Schreiber,
Aye.
Spencer,
Aye.
Spicer,
Aye.
Ward,
Aye.
Wiseman, Deacon,
Aye.
Fitzwater,
Aye.
Hensley,
Aye.
Kimna,
Aye.
Lester.
Aye.
Bill passes. Item 14, informal counter 2022, number 3, about the Ohio Street Bridge. Councilman Fitzwater.
Yes, we're going to leave that issue on the informal calendar. I think we've discussed it at past meetings. It just doesn't fit our cost structure right now.
Okay, so that will die this evening. 2022-9. Councilman
Move.
Lester?
I'm going to move to take this item off the informal calendar to take action and discussion.
Okay, so that without Councilwoman Wiseman, the bill sponsor here, that would require 6 people to vote. So there's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion?
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
It's very specific to one particular group of employees. Can someone confirm whether or not the communications operators are, if there's a hiring incentive currently being offered for those vacancies? Similar to, I believe, what was offered for police department hiring within the last several months.
Yeah, I didn't hear the first part of the question. For communication operators,
Yeah.
is that, yes, there is one for police officers and communications
Okay,
operators.
and how much is that? Do we know?
I think that's $5,000 for communications operators, and there's a 2-period payment for that.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. We have a motion and second. Councilman Fitzwater?
Yeah, I just want to make a comment. I know this is a critical issue for us to be addressing. I know there's been a couple suggested proposals go forth for our consideration. There's a lot of interest. I mean, I think, as we presented with some of the ARPA funds, I feel like there's support from council to try to do something in these very difficult times. I do feel a little uncomfortable. I had a chance to talk to Council Member Wiseman on Friday evening that the sponsor of the bill is not here to at least talk about it. I mean, I understand that we as council have the ability to pull something off, but just from a protocol perspective, just seems like she ought to have an opportunity to speak to that. I know that puts a delay in the process, but I just think we have, with the two proposals, the original proposal from Mr. Kroll, which I know has gotten some comments, that she ought to have the opportunity to kind of pull it together and then us discuss it. So I will not be supporting the motion to pull it off tonight. I think that, again, the delay is not, I would like not to have the delay because I know the need is immediate, but I think from a process point of view, that might be the best way to do it.
Councilman Hensley?
Thank you. I'd just like to echo Councilman Fitzwater's remarks. I know Councilwoman Wiseman, who happens to be traveling right now and in a fairly remote location, if I understand it. I think she was trying to make efforts to be with us virtually tonight, but wasn't able to achieve a strong enough link to participate. Last time I spoke with her, I know she was seeking availability for a work session, even as soon as sometime next week, which I don't consider to be a particularly undue delay given the importance of the topic. So for the same reason, while I agree that it's an important discussion, I think I will also not be supporting the motion this evening.
Councilwoman Wiseman was intending to join. She did say that service was not good, so that she did not know that she would be able to. I've watched and I have not seen her pop up on the screen, so. Any other?
I just
Oh.
say that I'm proposing it because this was put before us quite a while ago, and it's the timing is important because we're losing staff, as I understand it, and there's been need for action, and I think timing is very important. So I last meeting I thought we should have a work session, but that didn't happen, and so anyway, I think we do need to take action on it as soon as possible.
Thank you, Councilman. Was there Councilman Spencer?
Yeah, and I will not be supporting pulling it off the informal as well. I think some things we need to remember as well is that we do have a salary study that's coming back. I think that's some information that this council, I think, thought would be relevant in how we move forward with pay. Mentioning the dispatchers, the proposal I've laid out, I think tries to address that issue more of a long-term approach. I think we're going to have one realistic whack at this to address something that's been an issue for a number of years, and that's compression. And I hope we really can take a real in-depth look at that and have some real solutions in moving forward with that, because it's even though we're not having a director exodus problem, we are somewhat taking advantage of the folks that have been here 15, 20, 25, 30 years that have stuck it out in our organization through the good and the bad times. And those are the ones that I think we could really focus on and give some relief. I look forward to Councilman Weissman's work session, and I think she's been more than supportive of really trying to move this process along. She just happened to be on vacation, so life does exist. So I appreciate her efforts in moving this forward as well.
Councilwoman Ward?
I don't think the intent of the 5% increase was to address compression at all. It's the immediate need to address inflation, which is, in March was 8.1%. I think we owe our hardworking city staff an immediate response to this. Yeah, it just keeps going, and I understand life does happen, and that Councilwoman Wiseman's not available, but I really think we need to address this as immediate as possible, and us trying to continue to keep taking the time to address the compression. You know, yes, that needs to be addressed, but that's what our study that we're paying for is doing. And again, this was never presented to address any of that. This has been presented to help our employees that are suffering from the inflation across the board. And I'm supportive of getting the immediate 5% pass.
Councilman Schreiber? Thank you.
I've looked at all angles of this, and I appreciate the extensive study that various people have put forth. I also had a rather extensive discussion with Councilman Wiseman before she went on our trip last week. But I concur with Councilman Ward. I feel like that we need to do something for our employees at the current time. And I know we've got a compression study coming up, and I think that's significant as well. But in the times that we're in right now, we need to move forward without a great deal of delay to do something for our employees across the board. So for that reason, I've made the determination of my own volition that I will be voting for us to move forward with this.
And I appreciate all those comments, and I do support the bill in the current form, which is the 5%, the original bill that came forward. And I believe that while there's a lot of other valid points, and Councilman Spencer and others have made, that is the next step that we need to also be immediately working on. I do support, though, the current bill. I'm just I'm not sure. I see a little bit of split, so I don't know if those numbers are there. Hearing some of the comments, but certainly do support that. If I often will say, if there was a tie, I would break it. That wouldn't be the case this evening because of the numbers here. Any other questions, discussion? So as we move forward and decide how to proceed, if it was a roll call vote that failed, what does that do? If right now we're just talking about taking it off.
If the vote fails, it will remain on the informal calendar and appear at the next city council meeting.
So then it would still stay. So really, there's not necessarily a risk in it. It wouldn't, if it fails, it doesn't just go off. It would still come up, which is kind of what we're talking about, part of the council wanting it to come back up. Then if it failed, it would naturally do that, correct?
Correct.
Any further discussion? Councilman Fitzwater?
Yeah, I would just add that I'm not sure that there's unanimous opinion tonight. I mean, as we've talked, we've got the original proposal, and we've got two other suggested modifications to that. I mean, again, I think 9 people are saying we need to help our staff, 9 council members. There's obviously yourself and our city administrator. But I'm not sure we've figured out how to do that yet. And I think the work session that Councilman Hensley reminded us of maybe is the place to iron that out and pull it together and do it right, as Councilman Spencer indicated. So, you know, again, I'm not sure we're ready for that. If we pull it off, then what? So yeah, I think giving us a little bit of time to sort out the 3 options might be our best course of action.
We still have the motion on the floor, and a second, yes. Further, was there another hand? Did I see one over here? Okay. So we have a motion and second, so we can move forward with the vote to take it off the informal calendar or not. So that's the motion and second, to take it off the informal. So
And my understanding is after we take it off, we'll have that discussion and decide on a implementation process.
So if it comes off, then the discussion would then be to take up the bill. If it doesn't, then my recommendation would be that tonight we set the date for a work session and then it be fairly, not fairly quickly, but fairly, I mean, very quickly. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Spencer,
No.
Spicer.
No.
Ward. Aye. Wiseman, Deacon,
No.
Fitzwater,
No.
Hensley.
No.
Kimna,
Aye.
Lester,
Aye.
Schreiber.
Aye.
4 ayes and 5 noes.
So it's still on the informal. So with that, I think I heard that we will plan a work session. So typically we do Monday nights, which would be Monday, the 27th.
I believe that is what Councilman Weissman was looking at.
So does that work for everybody then? All right, so we are setting a work session for this Monday, the 27th at 5:30 here in council chambers, correct? And resolution 2211.
A resolution suspending transit fixed route fares for a period not to exceed 6 months.
Mr. Marash.
Thank you. Councilman Deacon brought this to our attention, and we had a discussion about it at our Public Works and Planning Committee meeting at the last meeting, and it was forwarded on to the council. But basically, the proposal would be to suspend the fixed routes only fares, and we estimate that would be about a $6,500 per month expense. Doing it longer than 6 months, that would be a major change, and we'd have to go back through and do a lot of looks at the rest of our fares, and so that's why it's up to 6 months. Promotional item is listed here. Wouldn't affect handy wheels. We do a lot of billing and federal programs that would be difficult to deal with if that were the case, and considerable amount of additional funding would be lost. The transit system is obviously, as most of you would know that have been through a budget meeting, has a subsidy attached to it. And as of lately, we have been using some what I term COVID money of various sorts to help fund that subsidy that's starting to run out here, coming up pretty quickly. And so there could be some impact to other funds by doing this. We haven't raised the rates in transit in many years now. We've discussed it a few times, but it never was passed by the council. And so I'd be glad to answer any more questions.
Thank you, Mr. Marash. Is there a motion to approve?
I make the motion to approve that we suspend the transit fares for a period of not less than 6 months.
And is there a second? All right, so further discussion on resolution 2022-11. And I know Councilman Deacon.
The reason I brought this forward, I wish it was a stroke of genius on my part, but it wasn't. It was Jefferson City, Cole County, #1 lover and #1 conservative, but Miss Carol McDowell, but she does have a little bit of socialism in her to boot. She said that we've got the buses and gas prices are going so high, so we ought to just do this for the citizens. Just give them a break, see if they ride the buses to work. And as a sideline, maybe they'll stop in the shops and buy stuff. There's a lot of promotional activities that could go along with it. That would have to come with the merchants. And as a sideline, it might pick up ridership or even find out where the ridership is better to go, or the bus is better to go. So all in all, it was just a nice thing to do for the public.
Thank you, Councilman Deacon. Councilman Spencer.
At our Public Works meeting, I kind of thought it was an opportunity for us to kind of do an internal study that, we really wouldn't have to pay for other than the lost revenue, so to speak. Is there a way we could put a QR code on our website, somewhere on as they enter the bus to where they can answer a short little survey that, why do you use public transit? What would you like to see out of your public transit? I think it would be good to get some information back other than the data that you say that you can capture. But I think it'd be nice to get some additional data too. QR codes, easy to do. Most people have smartphones that can recognize that. And, that's kind of their way to ride is, hey, your bus driver, your drivers would say, hey, take time to fill out the survey. We'd really appreciate it. So I think that would be a nice supplement to the data that we could utilize for future purposes. Thank you.
I just completely disagree. I just want to voice that opinion. I think if you're going to do something like that, and maybe there's some value to seeing those who are currently riding the bus, but it sounds like this program and what you're trying to do, maybe it is, I don't know exactly if I fully understand what you're trying to accomplish, but that it might be more of who's not riding the bus that you need to survey. Why aren't they? Is it gas prices? Is it other things? Is it routes? Is it convenience? And I know that there's a lot, it's a pretty complex matter when it comes to transit. So I don't know that necessarily surveying those that are already riding it. Being in business, I'm thinking, is this a marketing thing? If it is, I don't see any marketing going along with it. It's kind of set up to fail if we really want to bring more people in. I don't know if free is really going to attract people or not. Certainly, if we have a marketing plan to go along with it, it might make sense. But to simply say it's going to be free, I mean, those people who are already riding are still going to ride. So I don't know what we're doing to attract others. Maybe just by way of saying tonight it's going to be free for a certain period would attract that. Is that what it is? What I've heard mostly, in fact, I haven't heard about fares. I know, like Matt said, we haven't raised fares. And was it either 10 or 20 years? 20? Anyway, long time.
Long time.
Long time. So the fares themselves, I haven't heard complaints about. I know when there's times when fares have been needed, like during the tornado, we've offered free fares. We've done the free ride day. I don't know if we've seen an increase on that, but trying to get people out to see what we offer. But mainly what we hear is increased service levels, and those are the requests. I have not heard a request about no fares, free. I've never had anyone ask for that, for free fares, but mainly for increased service. And I also want to mention, and you can answer to, why would we forfeit the revenue? I mean, $40,000 is coming out of general fund. So that is the revenue loss, I believe, for, is it 5 months?
6 months, is what I recall.
But I don't know if
Yeah.
it was 5 or 6 because there was a 6-month cutoff with the federal funding anyway. The 40,000 that was brought up at Public Works, my thought is typically if any of us bring up an item that has a $40,000 decrease in revenue, and we do this during the budget process, and I mentioned it at Public Works, so you might have had time to think about, but what is that offset? We always ask for an offset, and we don't need one, certainly. Maybe that's the whole point of this, is just to lose the 40,000 and we don't need it. But with gas prices going up, we might actually need that and more. And we know the subsidy will increase with transit. But do you happen to have, because that would be something we will have impacted in the current budget year, that what your offset would be for that? Councilman Deacon.
There is no offset. My thought was, well, Carolyn and I both, there's certain times of the days that very few riders are on the bus. And with the gas prices escalating, it was just a nice thing to give to the city because we were constantly asking them for new taxes here, vote for this, vote for that. And the only services they see is fire and police, which is excellent. They're not real happy with our roads right now, but it'd be one thing to say, yeah, the city, that was nice of them to do. It's strict. It's nothing to help us whatsoever. It's just strictly for the citizens. Instead of giving them a 5% raise, give them a free ride to work if they want to take it.
Any other comments?
Yeah, I'd like to respond. I just can't disagree more with how having additional information to be able to move forward with future discussions about public transit could hurt. The CARES Act funding is running dry. I mean, we've shored that up for the 2 years. So we're going to have some real in-depth discussions about public transit. And I think having a little bit of additional data from those that actually use the transit system, I think would be valuable. So again, if you don't want to do the QR code, that's fine. It was just a suggestion. Again, I thought more information is better than none.
And I would just add that I believe that while it was mentioned that some of the routes aren't full, that I would encourage, and I know Mr. Maymert has encouraged council to get on the bus and ride. He would be happy to take you out on the bus and show you some of the routes that are more used. We deal with this with a lot of other subsidized things. We don't say, well, this will be free and that will be free because prices are high for other entities that we have. So while I think that, and I think to Councilman Spencer's point, you raise a very good point. I think it is a larger conversation. I think this is sort of an approach of one item that may not get us the return or the what we're really looking for, other than saying now we'll have a $40,000 hole that was previously filled. But I do think it is a larger conversation that could be had of looking at transit more holistically like we typically do, and looking at routes and looking at other things and getting out there and communicating and taking the time to meet with Mr. Marash and I'm sorry, Mr. Maymert and Marash probably, and actually get out there and see what some of those routes are. Because like anything else, some roads are traveled more and less, and we don't pave them or not pave them. I mean, we look at a holistic approach, and I think we could do that with the buses. And again, I guess with the 40,000, knowing that that's coming out of general revenue, we're getting ready to do budget. I'm surprised that no other council members are asking for an offset. You have no offset, and if that's okay with everybody. But again, it's a reason I don't necessarily agree with it, because that will come down to, for example, a police car when we're doing our budget again. So typically we just require an offset. So I'm just curious, because that will be less of something in the budget, whether we like it or not typically. So, all right. Any other comments?
Yeah, I just,
Councilman?
I think if we're doing this, it would be, I think, a good idea to have some kind of marketing to try and increase ridership, especially among younger people. And maybe it would be better to have it for a little less time and put a little bit of money into marketing. I don't know. Maybe.
I agree. If increasing ridership is the goal, what I'm hearing is let's just be nice and give something away or something to that effect, is what Councilman Deacon said. So I don't know if the goal is to increase ridership or not. It should be, I think, if we're going to sacrifice that type of revenue. Councilman Fitzwater?
I was just going to comment, and I appreciate Councilman Deacon bringing this to Public Works. I think as Councilman Spencer indicated, the idea was to try to do a study of our transit to see if we can do something to spike. I mean, I don't have unrealistic expectations we're going to fill up buses, but again, this time when with $5 gas, and as we discussed at Public Works, hopefully the Downtown Association, the East Side Business Association, the West Side Business Association, merchants in our community where the buses are on their route will help us promote it. I agree. I mean, we're not putting, we felt like the fare reduction was our contribution, but other people are going to have to step up and help us. But as Councilman Spencer indicated, and Councilman Hensley is well aware, we've plugged $1 million plus hole over the last couple of years. We have had sidebar discussions on where do we go with this. This is an opportunity to do limited marketing. I understand it's not a sophisticated marketing study, but if we pick up no new riders, I think that sends us a message that maybe this is not the method to get people around our communities. So to me, it seemed like a good investment and I'm probably one of them on the list of harping when we spend dollars, but this one seemed like we were getting something back if we get the data that it made it worthwhile to invest or de-invest those dollars for a short period of time to help us with the budget process of where do we take this thing when the federal government decides that they're not going to help us plug the hole. So I appreciate him bringing to us. Yeah, I think it's a good public relations move for the city. I agree, we cannot afford to give away everything, but this is one we're struggling with, and it seems like it's worth the risk for a short-term period of time. I hope we double, triple, quadruple our ridership. I hope people take us up on the opportunity. Then we have at least some data that we can move into the budget process. Thanks.
I would say that high gas prices would naturally do that, what we're talking about. I'm a little concerned when you say, let's see what the data says, because maybe if it doesn't increase ridership, then maybe we don't need the service that's provided, because we're setting it up to do just that. We're kind of setting it up to maybe fail because we don't have a marketing plan in place to market and try to increase ridership if that's the case. I don't see an increase other than high gas prices driving people to the bus. My question, maybe this would be to Mr. Marash, is what did the Transit Advisory Committee, what was their feedback on this proposal?
Yeah, I don't have that right with me now. I'd have to go back and look. I'm not sure we've circled back to them, quite frankly, on this. I don't believe, because we just had our meeting with Public Works and Planning, Committee. And
It just seems odd that we have a Transit Advisory Citizen Group Committee that meets regularly, but they wouldn't have seen this. I
I'm
mean,
not certain about it.
they
If they've
probably
been
should.
contacted by.
The council might
yeah.
want them to.
Yeah.
I would sure think before we make a decision, but. Well, with that, we have a motion and second. Any further discussion? Roll call, I'm sorry, Councilwoman Ward.
So it seems like the council is wanting perhaps data associated with this and some type of way to market it to ensure people are aware of it, so we get appropriate data through some type of survey. So, I mean, I don't think we're prepared to vote on something like this if we don't have a marketing plan or a survey plan on what we're wanting to collect. And I would also suggest, if our traffic commission hasn't seen this, that they need to before we move forward with any action.
And our transit, I think you said traffic, but you meant to
Sorry,
say transit.
Transit, I'm sorry.
Mhm.
Yes, sorry.
Yeah. Councilman Spencer?
So you've not communicated with the transit committee? I thought maybe you were going to and maybe I
Not
missed it.
in the short time frame. And I can't say that if Director Mamert did or didn't poll him, informally more, but he didn't. I'm not aware of it. I guess I'll put it that way. I can go back and ask and let everybody know. And this wasn't, when this was brought up, it wasn't, it was just a brought up kind of last minute and sent to the committee to discuss. Now, all of the things everybody's mentioned are good things to do. Other communities that have done something similar and more thoroughly certainly had a marketing consultant. I mean, it becomes a much bigger topic. We've done plans in the past that did lots of surveys in different ways. And I think generally what you find out of these surveys is that they kind of follow a certain pattern. And we could certainly do more of them, but that's typically, we'd have some kind of consulting contract to help with marketing and et cetera. Certainly we do Mr. Mamert does a Facebook page and some of the staff, but it's very targeted just to people who use the system. I would say our system is used by a certain demographic of folks, and it's consistently the same folks using it. What we think would happen certainly is that the folks using the system may use it more often since it's free. They wouldn't have to have the dollar to ride, and they may take more trips. So what we often find is very cyclical nature of trips. Certain times of the month, our ridership will go way up, or and that's based on maybe grocery shopping or whatever. And so we just kind of see that repeat rider. So to get the new riders, I think, I don't know who mentioned it now, but, that's a little different thing. And if you're in other communities, you happen to have the radio on, a lot of times they'll have radio announcements and all kinds of different marketing things going on. And of course, that's a little bit more extensive than what this was.
Facebook ads you can target whoever you want on Facebook ads. And I think that'd be.
Yeah, they've friended us already, but they're probably users of the system currently.
Right. But I'm not sure that Facebook page is using ads, Facebook
Oh,
ads.
I'm
you know what I'm
sorry. Yeah.
saying? So,
Yeah.
that are very targeted, for, a demographic that you're not capturing right now.
And I would say, I mentioned at the committee meeting, we try to do within our current staff, small staff, again, that have to do a lot of different hats. But we know, for example, we target certain school groups. We're taking a bus, I think, to the IC school here coming up to, let people kind of view the bus, let them know their kids can ride it. When school starts up again, I think that's scheduled maybe in a month or two from now. But just, we do attempt to do that in-house, but they're pretty short, targeted things that we can handle with our small staff. So.
Thank you, Mr. Marash. And I hope that I didn't come across harsh. I think publicly I likely will for some of those comments I made. While I think that it's a very valuable service, that I want to see it continue and get stronger. And I don't know that this is the way to do it. I don't feel like we have a strong plan to really make our bus service better by just making it free. I don't know that it gets us our goals. So that's just my thoughts on that. Councilman Kemna.
Yeah, and I'm not opposed to it. I think it has some value. I know at the last Public Works and Planning meeting, I did ask, how come this didn't go through the appropriate channels of transit? And I think it was just, well, it didn't necessarily have to. I think was kind of the response. I don't know. We can look back on that. But I would, just because that's the normal routine, I would like to see this go through transit, get their input. And it may give us a little bit of time to look at maybe some marketing strategies. Because I don't think this is an urgent item by any means that we have to pass tonight. But just to get a little more data and some input on this. And then if it goes through and we all feel like, yeah, this is still a great strategy. Again, now I'm not against it, but I would like to get some more information and come up with a marketing strategy, things of that, so that we feel comfortable doing this as a council.
Councilman Schreiber.
I'm not against trying this program on a trial basis. However, I do feel like that I am hesitant now because I feel like it's only right that we get some input from transit before we go forward with anything. So for that reason, I would not be voting for it at this time.
Thank you. Any further discussion before we take our roll call vote?
I feel the same way as Councilman Schreiber. And I do I pick up on Councilman Spencer's mention of Facebook ads. I've seen where those targeted ads can be very effective, bringing in new people just that were unaware of services. So that's something that we should consider, or somebody should consider.
Thank you. Sorry, Mr. Deacon, Councilman Deacon.
I will probably vote, voting no, simply because it go through the process. But I think it is a time crunch, because we go the normal process in weeks and weeks and weeks, and all of a sudden people need relief now, just like the employees need some relief. But I will vote no, only because I feel it should go through the proper channels.
Councilman Spencer.
If it's all right with you, then I'll pull my second on this, and then let it go through the proper process. Let's get a plan in place. Let's get it set up to succeed. And yeah, we'll probably lose 2 or 3 weeks of good summer activity, but if that can extend maybe into the fall, I think we could still be okay. If that's all right with you, Councilman Deacon.
Yeah, that's fine. I want to go.
So we've withdrawn the motion and second. So unless anyone else, I should ask in case anyone else has a motion or second to move this forward. If there is none, Mr. Molman.
A suggestion, an affirmative referral to the Public Transit Advisory Committee may be appropriate. To let them specifically know that this has been sent to them and ask for their specific input on the item.
So I believe that we've had a public
So I'm
referral
clear
here.
on what we're doing.
Okay.
So typically, if we refer something like this and talk about marketing plan and targeted ads and things like that, that would probably end up in conjunction with something like this. That would probably end up being a little more extensive of a fiscal note, because there would be additional things need to be done to market and ads, et cetera, et cetera. And so that's not exactly what we talked about at first, and that's okay. We can do that. So you would be talking about, more than likely, you would see something come from them that they would be, I don't know if we have grant eligible funds for that or not. I have to check into all that kind of stuff. And then we would, something that has a fiscal note to it like this, we typically on these advisory boards, we as a sounding board, we go through them, but then we'll come back to a council committee so that they understand the fiscal note then, and then get a recommendation there before we would proceed with another contract or something like that.
Councilman Spencer?
And not to step on Public Works Chairman Fitzwater, but I mean, we've already let it out of our committee. All we're going to do is bring it to full council again. So if we could streamline that process and bring it on to the full council, fiscal impact with Facebook ads is minimal dollars, probably less than $5,000 easily. So I don't think we're going to be talking significant dollars with Facebook ads.
Do you have the direction you need? Take this topic. So this has not been a topic.
What do you want me to say?
At the transit
Well, no, I
advisory
mean,
needs to
that is the
discuss this.
process, and you know, and I know it's a little bit of minutia, but if you want a targeted campaign and all of that, that typically, and other agencies have hired consultants to do that. It's a consulting contract is what that is. And to help develop those things, again, small staff, got plenty going on. It's difficult to do that in our current workload. So that's why I said it would have additional fiscal note to it. There may be some grants available to help with that. It's potential. That's what we want to spend grant money on. But we can certainly start with transit committee and see where we get and go from there.
Okay, plan on that and let Councilman Deacon make sure that he knows, because he may want to attend that meeting as well to explain like he did at Public Works. Councilman Fitzwater?
We're talking about process. I think it makes sense, as you indicated, to bring it back to Public Works for a glance before we send it to council. And so I would support that. If I know it puts one more step in, but if it's process we're talking about, then we ought to do it and be done with it. So I'm comfortable with bringing it back to us.
All right, should we move on from that item or with anything else? Did you have something, Mr. Deacon?
I
Councilman Deacon?
just want to make sure I don't get vertigo by getting on Jeff City Roundabout. Sometimes we just go circles and don't get it done. So hopefully we can go to transit, get something streamlined, not have 100 different grants we got to deal with, and just give some free ridership. Thank you.
Thank you. Resolution 2212.
Sorry, do we need an
Yes.
official motion to send it to transit? Brian, I think you're commenting on.
We can bring it up we'll bring it up on the next agenda.
All right, 2212.
A resolution authorizing the city of Jefferson to contract with Tiger Eye Engineering LLC in the amount of $63,250 to complete a pavement evaluation within the city.
Mr. Marash?
Thank you. And this is kind of a companion bill to our overlay program, if you will. We've done this in the past. It's been several years now. And so that information is getting stale, but basically this would be a evaluation of all the payments in the city to give an independent look at them and give them a rating as smoothness, ride quality, et cetera. And so that kind of helps us in our planning as we move through our overlay budgets. And this is kind of a upstart or university-based type system. It is considerably more cost-effective than our last study. And I think Ryan had a comment about that, but we've been working with some of the university professors to develop this over time, and now we're ready to proceed.
Mr. Molman?
Yeah, so there's a section in city code and the purchasing code that allows the city council to essentially waive the procurement process for special types of projects, given our history with the University of Missouri and kind of the overall research purposes that this is supposed to help serve. I thought it would be appropriate to bring this to the city council in a resolution form, which the ordinance specifies. For the resolution, if you take a look at it, does specify that section of City Code 26A 42A, which allows for a waiver of the procurement process for special types of projects. And so it just wanted to make the council aware that this exercises that particular authority.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve? Okay.
So from every average citizen, they're going to ask me, why are we spending $63,000 on another study assessment of roads? I can tell you, or paraphrasing here, I can tell you exactly how bad shape our roads are in. I mean, our car's out of front end alignment shop 2 or 3 times a year. So what added value are we getting for $63,000 that I can explain to the Third Ward residents that they're gonna get out of this?
Yeah, I mean, certainly, another study, as everybody likes to say, here's another study. But, our need is great in overlay. Many times we'll get a call from a citizen, hey, when is my street coming up? Well, the first thing we do, we go refer back to our old study, number one, and look and kind of see where they're at in comparison to other streets. It also helps the council to say, okay, we are not keeping up at our current funding level because our street rating continues to decline. And so it's just having a better data-driven decision when it comes to the overlay program that we haven't had in the past until our last study. And I think we've greatly improved since that study and having these different types of contracts. That was not something we did in the past. And having it kind of separated where we can look and say, okay, this one is still in pretty good shape. Here's the age. So this is the effective treatment that we should be looking at and things like that. And so that it's kind of a technical answer, but that's what we get out of it. And it's very helpful to the staff, quite frankly. Before it was always basically a visual inspection. There'd be a lot of driving about every year, and there still is that, certainly. But this helps us with our process and target those dollars where independently we know they're needed most.
Councilman Fitzwater.
I would just support what Mr. Marash said, and you've seen on Public Works, I think having this study has helped us in kind of prioritizing, or at least solidifying in our minds the prioritization of streets. So again, I share your thoughts of spending money, but I think it helps us in the long run of making sure that we're going and that we're doing it in a judicious fashion, something that we can defend because it's a process. It's not just the subjective taking a look at it. So I think it's money well spent and probably savings in not doing projects that aren't on the priorities. So I would move that we go ahead and approve it. And
All right, we have
push
a
it
motion.
forward.
Is there a second? Any further questions, discussion? Roll call, please.
Spicer,
Aye.
Ward,
Aye.
Wiseman, Deacon,
Aye.
Fitzwater,
Aye.
Hensley.
Aye.
Kimna,
Aye.
Lester,
Aye.
Schreiber.
Aye.
Spencer.
Aye.
Resolution passes. Item 16, we have no one signed up for presentation. 17, any council and staff discussion. 18, any new business. 19, any unfinished. And 20. Who's going to move to adjourn without Councilwoman Wiseman here? All right, we have Spicer. Did you get a motion and second?
Yep.
All in favor, say aye. Thank you.